Welcome to Spooky Southcoast.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
AM 1420, WBSN presents Spooky South Coast with your hosts, Tim Weisberg and Matt Costa.
Good evening and welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa and science advisor Matt Moniz. The gang is all here. We're back. We survived Hurricane Tropical Storm Irene. I almost said trash, and it was kind of trash because we canceled the show. It turned out that it was good that we did because weather started moving in kind of early. But we did call off our annual Bridgewater Triangle Investigation Show last Saturday night, and instead we moved it to tonight. So now being the holiday weekend, it's not as many groups. It seems like for the most part, a lot of the groups are still involved that were going to be involved. We did lose a few people due to the holiday, but we make do with what we can. And we are actually going to have quite the show for you tonight because we've got probably 15 people, 20 people out in the field in various locations. But actually, for the first time, doing one of these Triangle Investigation shows, we don't have Matt Moniz out in the studio. He's out in the field. He's here in the studio with us tonight. So he's going to help us because basically Matt Koss and I get run ragged during this show. So now you have to see what it's like on this side. Instead of just driving around and having fun, with Andy and Tom and whoever else you've gone out with, now you've actually got to do the work.
Okay.
The investigation stuff, that's easy for you. You're used to that. It's the radio stuff that comes hard. And we are broadcasting on Spooky TV on SpookySouthCoast.com. If you want to see what's going on inside the studio, you can do that by going to SpookySouthCoast.com and clicking on the Spooky TV link in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. And also, when you're on SpookySouthCoast.com, if you click on the Bridgewater Triangle Project link at the bottom of the page, it will take you to the Triangle Investigation Show page, where we have some of the locations up that people are going to be at as evidence and video and EVPs and whatever else come in during the course of the night. Chris Balzano is in Command Central down there in Florida. He said he has 3 computers set up to do all this. We're going to check in with him a little bit later on in the show because we've got some huge breaking news regarding some of the stuff that we talk about when we talk about the Bridgewater Triangle, some of the cult killings that happened in the Freetown State Forest. We have some breaking news tonight about that, so stay tuned for that later on coming up with Chris. We also have our Twitter feed up there on the Bridgewater Triangle Project page, and you can follow during the course of the night because normally we would check in with the investigators out in the field off and on throughout the course of the show. We find out what's going on. We have so many people that want to get involved in so many locations that are covered. It really wouldn't work to do that. We'd have to just keep dialing somebody on the phone every 5 seconds. So instead, we've tried to use Twitter. And if you use the hashtag, which is the little number sign for those of you who aren't Twitter people, which I'm not, I'm learning. But if you use the hashtag Spooky Triangle, that will get you into the conversation there. And you can take part. And if any of the investigators are out there can hear me and they're having trouble actually getting their tweets to show up, or if you can't tweet, you can just text Chris and he'll make sure that they get up there into the Twitter feed. So that's going to be the way to follow along during the course of the night. We have also I've got Facebook open. So either through my Facebook page or the Spooky South Coast Facebook page, we'll be posting up updates too as much as we can. I have a lot of technology in front of me, and I have to be hosting the show at the same time. So we'll see if we can work it out. We'll see if we can make this all happen. But joining us on the phone line tonight throughout the course of the discussion is our friend Kristen Good from Bridgewater Triangle Research. Her partner, Manny Familore, and her are doing a great job really researching the history of the Bridgewater Triangle and some of the various sites and events that have happened around there. And she is joining us tonight from out in the Triangle herself, not out in the field, but comfortably I don't want to say comfortably because you got to be uncomfortable when you talk about some of the stuff we talk about with the Bridgewater Triangle, Kristen. But at least you don't have to be outside getting bit by mosquitoes and risking triple E like some of these other fools are tonight.
That's true.
And do you feel that, when we do these type of shows and we always talk about paranormal activity happens when people are there to perceive it. Do you just expect that you're going to get a whole bunch of reports coming in from people over the next few days from stuff that all these investigators have stirred up while they're out there?
I don't know. I have a good feeling about tonight. Did you see the moon coming in?
I did, yeah. That orange, what was it, a quarter moon?
Yeah, it's really cool. There's a weird energy tonight, so I'm hoping for some good action.
Well, we're going to keep you on the phone throughout the show, even as we check in with some other people around the field. And let me just give a rundown of who we have out there and what's going on. We have Pilgrim Paranormal Research. Their website is pilgrimparanormal.com. They're out in the Raynham Dog Track area. They're looking for Thunderbird sightings and some of the mysterious black dogs with red eyes and some of the other things that have been seen out there. You can follow along with them on Twitter at @P_P_R. We also have Bay State Paranormal. We have Charlene and Rachel and Linda Marie. They're out there with Mike and Paula Markowitz and Kerrigan and Jason Lorifus. They're all out at Burial Hill in Plymouth, which fits into the theme of this year's Bridgewater Triangle Investigation Show, the March of Anawan, which we'll get to in a second. Whaling City Ghosts, Luann and Renee, they're out at Anawan Rock and some of the other places associated with Anawan out in that area. Greenville Paranormal Research, Andrew Lake. That's greenvilleparanormal.com if you want to go to their site. Paranormal Granny, Kathy Caslin, and Worcester Paranormal, worcesterparanormal.com. They are all out together at Route 44 and Profile Rock. We've got a whole bunch of people actually at Profile Rock. They're going to run into each other and have no idea that they're all out there together, which is awesome. And we have Mark Colacusis and Nathan Meyer and some other people. They're out at the Sonnet Ledge and the old Welcome Center in the Freetown State Forest. So, and we have John Brightman and Joe Andrade out there as well. New England Paranormal Research is out in the Freetown area as well. So I just can only imagine what's going to happen when they all like turn the corner and there's another investigator shining a light in their face. But it definitely seems like things are centering around the Freetown area, the Route 44 area, you know, the places that we know that Anawan would have frequented during his life. And Kristen, we talked about how last week was supposed to be the anniversary of Anawan, but as you were saying in your research, it turns out that, you know, the date that we have is of his capture and that he actually was not executed right away.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, he was kind of marched around all of New England. He was taken to Plymouth for a while, to Rhode Island, and it was about this time that he actually was executed back in Plymouth.
So maybe it was fate intervening to make sure that we were actually closer to the anniversary of his death.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I expect some action there tonight out of every place. That would be the hot spot, I would think.
Now, normally when we do this, you know, we're worried about a lot of the current happenings, a lot of the current reports that we talk about, you know, things that people have reported over the last few years. But you do a lot of research into some of the real background stuff of the Bridgewater Triangle, and I know that in your thanks, Moniz. I know that in your research, you found that there is a heavy concentration of things that happen in the Bridgewater area, but I got to think too that the Freetown and Rehoboth areas pop up quite a bit as well. Yep,
absolutely. I was actually at Anawan Rock just on this date 2 years ago. I don't know if I told this story the last time I was on the show about the father and his kids running out of the woods. Did I tell you about that?
No.
All right, I was with Derek Gunn and Elizabeth Russell. We were about to walk down the path, and we saw 3 flashlights and people running like bats out of hell down the path. And it was a guy in his 50s and his 2 kids that were in their 20s. They went there every year on around that time. They'd go on the 28th and then a week after. They lived in Rehoboth. And they were scared out of their minds. The guy was covered in sweat, even though it was a cool September night. And I asked them if they saw anything, and they said they did. And they saw about 100 glowing eyes just floating on top of the rock. And I asked them to go back in and show me exactly where they saw it, and they were too spooked. And they said they actually got an EVP the year before, and it said Neotomp. And they said, we have no idea what that means. And I said, well, that's Wampanoag for friend. That kind of eased them a little bit, and they finally agreed to go back. And the spot that they saw the eyes was the exact spot where Anamon was captured with his son as they lie sleeping by Benjamin Church. So that was pretty cool.
We'll have to check in when we check in with Whaling City Ghosts and Lou Angeli a little bit later on. I think she may have gotten something similar from that area too.
Really?
Yes, I want to say, because I don't know the Wampanoag language, so I want to say that that would be where I originally heard that word, was from her telling a similar story. But we'll check in with her for sure a little bit later on. We sent her to Anawan Rock because she has made quite the connection out there with the spirits that are there over the course of the last few years. She went out there for the first Triangle Investigation Show and got such great results that we've kind of just kept sending her back there year after year.
Cool. I look forward to hearing from her.
Well, we'll definitely check in with her, and we've got numbers for everybody. So during the course of the evening, we will check in with a number of them. And Chris Balzano is down in Florida at Command Central, posting all the tweets up there on our Twitter feed, which you can get to from the Bridgewater Triangle Project page at SpookySouthcoast.com. But I'm just going to go over some of the tweets that have been happening, because people have actually been out there since earlier tonight. So it's not just that we started at 10 o'clock. A lot of these groups were out in the field already. So just let me go over here. I'm new to all this technology myself. So basically, we have Bay State Paranormal is at the fort in Plymouth, and they've already heard crying and a small boy saying, "Tell Granny I'm okay." So that's pretty interesting. There is a psychic out at the Sonnet Ledge with Mark and Nathan. They have Leslie the psychic out there with them, and she knew nothing about the area. She didn't want to know anything about their going in, and she already asked if there was a suicide there. And she is waiting for Monize's lady that's been seen out there. She's been getting a suicide, a head injury, and the name David out in the Freetown State Forest, with the group calling themselves for the night the Freetown Forest Freaks. And let's see what else we have coming up. If you want to go to it again, just go to the Bridgewater Triangle Project page at SpookySouthcoast.com. I got to figure out how to work Twitter here. I think if I just use my own feed, maybe. No, that won't work. All right, I'll figure it out. Fascinating radio. But, it is great that we can use this technology for this, to have people be out there and be able to real-time tweet what's going on. I think that we might be creating enough concentration of energy anyway, just sending out all these investigators. But now we're sticking these cell phones in their pockets and giving just a little extra boost to whatever's out there. So draw that energy if you need it. And John, if you're listening, we have the public service announcement portion of the show. John Brightman, if you're listening, Joe Andrade is at Profile Rock, and he needs to get in touch with you. So, also, if your car license plate is 4953BR, your lights are on in the parking lot. So, why don't we start checking in, Matt? If you want, we can check in with some of these groups. A little bit at a time, and I'll let you decide who you want to call first. You can just oh wait, we have the phone line on. Can you? I'm blanking. Can you call them while I'm talking to Kristen on the phone?
I can't remember.
Well, let's try it. See how it goes.
We'll find out. See what happens.
We'll figure it out as we go along. This is what happens when you take a week off from the show. And I was looking at the holiday schedule too, and we're gonna be missing some shows up in the holiday season. Christmas Eve is on a Saturday night, so we won't be here that night. And New Year's Day is a Saturday. I don't see why we can't do a New Year's Day show. But and then October 15th, we're going to be having our Haunted History Night in Wareham at the Fearing Tavern and the other historic buildings there. So we're going to actually have Chris Balzano host it. He doesn't know this yet. He's listening now. But we're going to have him host the show October 15th. We're going to send Matt back here to run stuff. And he's going to host the show while you and I are helping Jeff running that event.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, so whoever he's got booked for that night, he's going to have to do all the show prep, as he does anyway, and he'll take over that night. But if you want to buy tickets to Haunted History Night, they are only $99. You can get them by going to SpookySouthcoast.com/event and purchase them now, because there's only 85 tickets that are going to be sold to this thing. So you want to make sure that you get them quickly. And you're going to get the chance to investigate the Fearing Tavern and numerous other historic buildings in Wareham, Mass. There's going to be presentations from myself, from Andrew Lake, whose new book, Ghost Hunting Southern New England, is coming out, and from Jeff Belanger, who you know from his many books, including the recently re-released edition of The World's Most Haunted Places. And we'll also have dinner prepared by the Spooky crew, as well as your chance to investigate all these buildings. Some of them have never been investigated before, so you don't want to miss that opportunity. And also, coming up September 25th, the Southcoast Paranormal and Psychic Fair will be happening at the Seaport Inn and Marina here in Fairhaven. It's going to be a day-long event, 11 to 7 p.m. Tickets are only $9 in advance, $10 at the door, and you're going to get just a ridiculous lineup of speakers. I'm going to be serving as the host for the event, and I'll be giving a discussion on the ghosts of the South Coast. We'll also have spirit medium Tiffany Rice will be there, John Brightman from New England Paranormal Research. Kristen, I know that you are scheduled to come. I don't know if you've been able to work it out, but are you planning on making it that night?
Yeah, I just touched base with John today. We have to figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah, but we'll have a nice little Bridgewater Triangle round table with yourself and John.
Yep, sounds good.
And we're going to have Keith and Sandra Johnson. We're going to have Shannon Sylvia, Brian Harnois, Mike Markowitz. So it's going to be quite a lineup of speakers that you don't want to miss. And where else can you see all this paranormal fun for $10? There'll also be psychics there available to purchase readings from. And there'll be craft tables and ghost hunting equipment and all kinds of things going on. So the news line is ringing. Were you calling somebody on the news line? Oh, let's take the call. Let's find out. It might be Taylor. He might call the news line. Go ahead, take it. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. How are you? Hello?
It's still me, Tim.
Well, you're going to be on no matter what.
Oh, okay.
But if the other calls come in, hello, WBSM. Once, twice sold. Bang. Oh, it didn't work. All right. Just hang up the phone. This is going smashingly.
If you'd like to make a call.
This is exactly what I thought would happen when we started involving all this technology. So you're striking out on getting a hold of some of these groups, Matt? Is that the case? Sorry.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But it is the triangle.
Yeah, and they are out there in the woods and various different spots. So
It is.
all right,
There's quite a lot of dead spots out there.
there is.
No pun intended.
So we basically have something like 20 or so people out there. There goes the news lines ringing again. All right, let's just do it. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. How you doing?
Oh, it's Mark Colacusis.
Hey, Mark. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Where'd you get the news line from?
I don't know. Spooky.
Yeah. So you guys are out there in the Sonnet Ledge area, and we've been reading.
We're at the Sonnet Ledge. We started on the Out Ledge. You know, our psychic, Leslie, what's your last name? Martin was getting in presence of a teenage male, head injury, head trauma, possible gunshot, and then there was nothing for a while, so we came down to Lower Ledge now. Now she's getting the presence of a teenage girl may have drowned, and we're right at the bottom of the ledge at the edge of the quarry.
So, I mean, there definitely seems to be a lot of impressions out there for her to pick up. What about those of you who aren't sensitive? I mean, what's the feeling out there for you normal? No, normal.
It's
unfeeling
pretty peaceful.
folk.
It's surprisingly quiet other than mosquito noise, but no other. There was one snap of a twig out in the woods. That was it. No planes flying over. We get no hits on K2s or nothing from camera that we've taken pictures of yet, at least so far. We're doing EVP sessions, but we're obviously not going to listen on that. We'll do them later. That's about it so far. It's just a lot of psychic impressions.
And
we haven't told her anything about the place.
Well, I mean, I think it's easy, too, when you get into an area that looks like the Sonnet Ledge to say, I think there were suicides here. So
yeah,
it's pretty obvious that there probably was.
That's what I was thinking, too. But now she's also getting the presence of maybe 2 Native Americans off to our left, if you're looking at the top of the ledge where we just were. And they were up there before, she says.
Well, to me, I mean, the thing that I'm the most concerned about is it turns out we've got quite a number of investigators that are kind of concentrated in the same area. So just look out for one another and keep an eye out for each other.
Oh, we met up with Brightman and Nepper, or however they pronounce it. And yeah, we already divided the whole
the battle lines have been
the
drawn.
keys to the gates, he said. So if we get in a jam, we can he can help us out, and vice versa. We each traded cell phone numbers. On the way up here, there was a bunch of kids in a pickup truck that got stuck in the woods, and the whole thing just looked kind of shady. They had a huge four-wheel drive vehicle that they couldn't get moving in the dirt, and there were like 6 guys that wouldn't even get out to push it. So we got out of there, and so now we're way away at the ledge, and we're not even hearing engine noise out here.
Well, the great thing about the Asana Ledge is on a beautiful September evening like tonight, it's the perfect night for a drug deal. So keep an eye out for. And just do what you got to do. I mean, you know what you can do. You're a pro.
Yeah, I've seen a few videos and I've had some training. Yeah, I think we're all set.
All right. Well, stay safe out there, and if we can, we'll check back in with you later on, and we can follow along with your tweets at Paranormal Pirate, right?
Yep, Paranormal Pirate with a no E at the end because it wouldn't fit.
That's
so
why.
Paranormal Pirate.
That's why we're at Spooky SC. So.
There you go.
All right,
yeah,
thanks,
we'll keep in touch with Twitter. That's a lot easier, and it doesn't affect the EVPs.
There you go.
Okay, Tim.
Thank you very much. Tell everybody we said hello.
Will do.
All right, bye.
All right, bye.
Bye.
And we have another call here coming in from. Do we know who this is? No? All right. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. How you doing?
Good evening.
Hello.
How are you?
We're doing well. How about
Hey, love
yourself?
your show, bro.
Thank you.
Love your show. This is in regards to years ago. I believe it was. I really don't know the year, but the Freetown State Forest.
Mm-hmm.
There was a girl that was tied to a tree, I believe, and they found her skeleton in the woods.
Mary Lou Aruda?
No.
Wow, that sounds familiar.
It's familiar, but that's a wrong answer.
No, wasn't Aruda the one?
Aruda was killed by I got corrected on this the other week. Mary Lou Aruda was killed by a donut maker up in, I want to say Abington, but I don't think that's right. It's central part of, tip of the triangle. But no, that's the wrong answer. It's not Mary Lou. I know that.
Okay, so, but there was
yes.
a skeleton they found actually strapped to a tree in the Freetown State Forest. Cause I've been spooked ever since.
No, I think Moni's.
Heard about it.
I think Moni's getting confused again.
I think so too.
I think it was Mary Lou Aruda. Because actually, if we can have John Brightman, if we get a chance to speak to him later on, we can have him talk a little bit. Because if I remember the story right, we've talked to him on the past on the show. It was actually his grandfather who discovered
the bot.
But
I don't.
Yeah, and I think Alan Ells was on the case.
Wow.
But there, and it was Cater that was ended up being found guilty of that. And so, but we'll get into a lot of this stuff a little bit later on with Chris Balzano, because there is some news that just broke today regarding some of the cult killings, and I think a lot of times people tie this murder in with it, but this happened in November of '78, and these cult killings happened in 1980. So we'll try and figure all that out a little bit as best we can. But did you have a question pertaining to that, sir?
Well, yes, I believe it was 1978.
Yep, November of 1978.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, that's because we just skipped date at a Profile Rock, and we used to go in. I used to ride my dirt bike in the woods in the Freetown State Forest years ago. And it was always, no matter what you did, you could never find your way out. It seemed like you always got lost. There was always a way to get lost. I mean, look what happened, was it a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, just a few weeks ago.
The state police had to go back in and get the cops out.
Yep.
Yeah, even the cops got lost. It's just very mystical, the Freetown State Forest. I don't know what it is, but I'm sorry. I just got up. I want to catch your show, and my voice is a little raspy, but I really dig your show.
Thank you very much.
I believe it was 1978 that they found a skeleton tied to a tree, and I was always mystical about that.
Yeah, that was the Mary Lou Aruda. The other
Mary Lou Aruda. Okay.
The other cases that.
What was the other one I'm thinking of?
Well, the other people. Hold on, I have the names here. That were found dead, and these are the ones in 1980 that were associated with the satanic cult. Karen Marsden.
Marsden, that's the one I was thinking of.
And Levesque. Let me see if I can find her first name. Doreen Levesque. Doreen Levesque, Barbara Ann Raposa, and Karen Marsden. Those were the deaths associated in 1980. So but again, it's a perfect example of what we're talking about here, Kristen, where something happens like that and other crimes get lumped in together, and it becomes part of that whole, like the highway killings are lumped in with all of that. It just seems like all the bad stuff that happens in that Freetown State Forest area is all tied together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mary Lou Aruta's murder wasn't a cult crime, but it was absolutely horrific. And I think because there was a cross found nearby the tree that that she was tied to, I think that some people tried to tie it in to a cult crime, but I don't think there was ever any evidence that it was anything but a psycho that killed a little girl.
Well, then even to this day, he's still claiming that he didn't do it. So, hey.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much for calling in.
All right. Enjoy your evening.
Have a great night.
Yep.
Bye.
I didn't hit air. Thank you. Good evening. You're on Spooky Southcoast. How you doing?
Good. It's Chris Pittman. How are you doing, guys?
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Chris.
Doing good.
Long time no speak.
Yep, it's been a long time. I've been busy. You guys have been up to a lot of fun stuff, I see.
Oh, yeah.
Kristen, how are you doing tonight?
Good. How you doing?
It's good. I'm good. It's nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you.
And for those who don't remember, when we talked about the Bridgewater Triangle for the first time, Chris was our in-studio guest.
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of everything you guys are doing, and always checking you guys out on the website. I think it's great.
Well, thank you. What's up with you? What have you been up to?
I've been really busy checking out some Native American sites in the Bridgewater Triangle area, looking for artifacts, trying to understand settlement patterns and the really long history of Native Americans in southeastern Massachusetts and in the Bridgewater area in particular.
Excellent. Now, the settlement patterns are especially interesting to me because aside from, certain things like geological factors or weather factors or, agricultural factors, do you find that there are spots that the Native Americans intentionally avoided?
Well, it's tough to say. I think, from my perspective as a guy who mostly, I exclusively look on the surface and look at the traces that Native Americans left on the surface of the ground. There are large areas that may be really rich with history, with artifacts where you can't see the ground, where I couldn't see anything, and then other areas where I look and I expect to find things, and for whatever reason those places are void. Native Americans lived here for 10,000 years, and I think a lot of the time when we think about Indians, we think about King Philip's War days and the names of the Indians that interacted with the colonists around the contact period. But I think it's important to realize that there were whole cultures, and one could almost say civilizations, that rose and fell in those many centuries before the first Europeans got here.
Well, that's the whole key of this, though, is when the Native Americans were here, they experienced, at least from some of the stories that we've heard. Now, granted, these stories are coming from the white settlers from years later, but they've had their own paranormal experiences in this area. They had their own reasons to not go into certain sites and to avoid things like the Hockomock Swamp. It's almost like no matter what we try to attribute this overarching paranormal mystery to, it goes beyond just any human that was ever here.
Sure. The thing is, there's so much mystery associated with all those long centuries of prehistoric habitation here. There was a huge population collapse around 1500 BC, and it was a collapse of a culture that was really focused right on southeastern Massachusetts, and for whom places like the Taunton River watershed were incredibly important. What some people have theorized that it might have been a war between that culture and other people who were here at that time or who arrived here that may have precipitated this enormous collapse, this vast loss of population, and really destruction of a way of life that had existed for that time already for thousands of years. And, there may be sites and places associated with great and dramatic, momentous events that we'll never know about, that we'll never understand, because those people didn't have a written language and they couldn't write it down.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got to have you come in sometime and talk about all this stuff with us and really get into the deeper history of what went on in this area before we have, these recorded accounts, because to me, that's what's the real history of this area that we never find out, because we have the bias. The history is written by the winners, and when that happens, we've had so much of what happened before the British settlers got here that's been buried.
Those people must have had great leaders and great thinkers and inventors, and I'm sure we're all really, we all as a people suffer that none of that information was retained and that it's all been lost.
We like to complain about how hard it is for us to live in this region, in the modern conveniences that we have. Imagine what it was like for these people to live amongst nature with these harsh winters and the different weather patterns that we have. They must have been smarter than we are, because we just hide in our houses with our air conditioners and go outside with our snow blowers.
And, thinking about, the big storm that we had recently, and just thinking, you could wake up one morning in your wigwam and it was nice and sunny, and a huge storm bearing down that you don't know anything about, and you can't plan for it, you can't prepare for it. But I'll tell you, when I go to these sites in the Bridgewater Triangle area, and I can go down on my hands and knees on the ground and look at the fire-cracked rock and the charcoal and their hearths and the traces of their wigwams and where they sharpened and made their tools. It's really it really kind of reduces that vast gulf, between us and them. For me, it helps me to think about what their lives must have been like, to stand right in the places, not only where they walked and hunted, but where they laid down for the night, where they slept, and where they made their homes.
Where have you been exploring mostly lately? What town?
Well, I look in different towns. Mostly what I'm looking for is proximity to water. Our highways now are, kind of analogous to how rivers were for them. So they really like to stay near rivers. That was their major transportation hub at that time. And, it's interesting. I'll go to a place and I find certain types of tools that were used by a certain culture, and then maybe I'll go to another place, maybe only a few miles away, maybe only a couple of miles away, where I find artifacts that are from the same time period, but from a very different people. And what's interesting is I never find artifacts from the two cultures from the same time at the same site, and I really think that they didn't get along.
Well, I have to ask you, Chris, as the person that kind of picked up the mantle of the Bridgewater Triangle from Lauren Coleman, and the person who was doing a lot of the groundwork of this research before the whole paranormal crowd jumped in and got involved. What do you think of what's been going on in recent years with more of a focus on the triangle and of paying attention to it as a paranormal vortex?
Well, it's really interesting, and I think something that I don't really talk about a lot, and it kind of doesn't get a lot of attention, is that there really isn't that much in the way of new sightings coming from people who aren't out there investigating the paranormal. When I started my website in 1999, I used to get sighting reports every month. Well, we're talking recent, for instance, Bigfoot sighting reports that were full of information where I could actually go and investigate these sightings, sometimes within days of an alleged encounter. And over the years, I've seen less and less of that. And I could almost say that there's a correlation between the vast focus on this area from paranormal investigators and a seeming decline in some of the different kinds of activity that were so interesting for me, way back then. And why that is, I suppose one could only speculate. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who are investigating, who are uncovering new information, who are having experiences of their own. But, kind of the old-fashioned, some guy coming out of nowhere saying, look, I had this strange encounter and I don't know who to talk to. I think we see less of that today.
I have to agree with that.
It definitely seems to be the case, and like you said, it's groups and investigators that are reporting this stuff and not the common folk. I just wonder if it's because, there's so much attention paid to it now that people kind of already, they have an understanding almost of why it happened to them, and therefore they don't really need to share and figure out what happened, because they just look up Bridgewater Triangle online and they realize, oh yeah, I guess this has happened to other people, so it's not that weird, so I'll just keep it to myself.
That's a good point.
Well, coming at this from a cryptozoological standpoint, there are a lot of documented cases where areas where there was a lot of Bigfoot sightings reported saw a decline in activity when investigators started to focus on that area. So I think there's a precedent for this kind of thing happening. Of course, it's hard to prove a negative. So it's certainly possible that people are out there and having these encounters and then just like you suggested, hopping on the internet, finding the answers that they need, and then it ends there.
All right. Well, thank you for checking in, Chris. Hopefully you can come back and join us for a full show sometime soon.
Sounds great. Anytime, guys.
All right. Thanks.
Bye, Chris.
That is Chris Pittman, the original Bridgewater Triangle researcher. Lauren Coleman coined the term, but Chris did a lot of the work. That's Lauren comes up with the catchy names, and we're just kidding. We love Lauren. We have the phone lines are all lit up here with what I'm assuming is groups that are out there, Matt? Do you kind of know? All right, we got Pilgrim Paranormal Research on the line. So good evening, guys. Thanks for going out there and doing the show with us. And you are out at the dog track. Which member of Pilgrim are we talking to? Hello?
Hello. Oh, sorry. We're in the middle of the nowhere in the dark.
That's okay. That's the theme of this show tonight.
This is Pilgrim Paranormal, and we have both myself, Marco Sinello, and Patrick McAllister here. We're actually going through the woods with a FLIR, and we're trying to track down Bigfoot, but we're not getting any hits. Not getting any heat signatures at all. Like there's no animals. There's just a bunch of insects around here.
Wow, no animals at all.
Yeah.
It's really quiet tonight. It's bugs and frogs. That's about it. But no large heat signatures on the FLIR. It's pretty calm out here tonight.
Now, some of the associated sightings that are seen out in that area aren't just, not just Bigfoot sightings, but there's been Thunderbird sightings. There's been, the demon dog sightings, giant snakes. So there's a whole host, a whole menagerie of animals that you can encounter out there.
Yeah, we actually did see at one point we got someone coming towards us here in the woods. We did see at one point a fairly bizarre flash of light in the sky, but that's pretty much it. It was a quick flash, went away, and that's all we've seen.
All right, well, and who's coming toward you? Is it human?
Yeah, it's a quad of some sort. So we'll figure that one out in a minute. So.
Okay, well, it might be EP out there checking on you. So we'll let you guys go, but definitely, are you guys tweeting from out in the field tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so and people can follow you at P_P_R, or they can see the tweets. As long as you get them over to Chris, they can see them right up on our Spooky South Coast feed on the Bridgewater Triangle page.
See if you can try some wood knocking.
Wood knocking.
Yeah. Grab a big branch and start banging it against a tree. That's one of the procedures used to try and lure in Bigfoot in most Bigfoot research expeditions.
It's also how Moniz scares kids out of his yard. All right, we'll give that a try, and we'll check back in. We'll be following along on Twitter.
Great, sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, we got about 3.5 minutes here before the news, so let's go to this line here. Who are we checking in here? Good evening, you're on Spooky South Coast. Who are we talking to?
Hey, Tim, this is Michael in Fresno, California.
Hey, how you doing? I guess you're not out in the Bridgewater Triangle tonight.
I really wish I do. I just want to say I love your guys' show.
Thank you.
Been listening about a year or so. This is actually the first time I've actually listened live, so just want to call and say you guys are doing a great job.
Well, thank you very much. Hopefully you'll join us more in the live shows, and normally we are more interactive in the chat room, but we got so much stuff going on tonight that...
No problem. And it's all interesting. I'm loving it.
Well, thank you so much. And do you guys have one of these vortexes out your way?
I wish. Fresno's a different kind of vortex. It's a vortex of, I don't know. But no, Fresno's different. I mean, you guys have so much history back there going back to the 1600s, where here it's 1850, maybe 1825.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just completely different. Yeah.
Actually, it goes back to the 1600s and 1500s if you include the Spanish.
Right. I don't think they had much of a presence here in Fresno. I know down south with the missions and up north, but here I don't think there was a mission. Because I know Fresno was settled about maybe 150 years ago. I mean, I know the history goes farther back, but that's more Southern California, at least from what I've been able to find.
Well, hopefully, you can get out here someday and check out the Triangle for yourself.
Hope so. That's actually on my bucket list.
Well, when you come out, let us know, and we'll be glad to join you.
Wonderful. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for checking in.
Oh, thanks. Have a good night.
All right, have a good night. I love when people get the chance to check in for the first time and when they can experience Spooky TV and see what's going on. Normally we're switching around the camera angles and we're having a lot of fun with that, but there's so much going on that we're kind of just trying to get through the show. But it's becoming something that I think is a destination point for people, and people who listen to the show on podcasts, they might not realize that it is really easy on a Saturday night. Just turn on your computer, or in some cases your smartphone, depending on if your phone can handle it, and you can just go right on the Spooky TV site and you can see what's going on in the studio. You can listen to the show that way, and you can chat along with other fans of the show. There's people from all over the world in the chat room. You start talking to somebody, next thing you know, you find out they're from Australia, they're from New Zealand, they're from Japan. You know, it's amazing, and we're glad that we can bring everybody together. We're glad that we can bring this show to you every year, where you can experience a little bit of what we get to experience all the time, with the Bridgewater Triangle being right in our own backyard. This paranormal vortex where so many different reports have happened. We're going to take a break coming up for the news. When we come back, we'll have more with our guest, Kristen Good, on the line, who's joining us as we run this circus that is the annual Bridgewater Triangle Investigation Show. But coming up right after the news, we want to check in with Chris Balzano, who's down there in Command Central in Florida, actually putting up all the tweets. We've got pictures up there on the Triangle page on SpookySouthcoast.com that are coming in. There's other evidence that's rolling in. The Twitter feed is up there, so you want to check all that out. But Chris is going to have some breaking news for us regarding some of those cult cases of 1980 that we talked about earlier in the show. Somebody who was associated with those crimes is now in police custody, and it may turn into something huge. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more after the news here on Spooky South Coast.
First with local news, talk, and sports. This is WBSM New Bedford, Citadel Broadcasting, AM 1420, WBSM.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Severson. Tropical Storm Lee may be dumping huge amounts of rain from the Florida Panhandle to southeast Texas, with winds cutting power to thousands. Surfers at Orange Beach, Alabama don't mind.
It's like really good for surfing and skimming. You know, like the waves are coming in real nice.
But lifeguards like Melvin Shepard do mind.
It's not just putting their lives at danger, it's putting ours at too if we have to go in for them.
So far, the New Orleans pumps are handling the 2 inches of rain per hour adequately. Forecasters say Lee is expected to head north, bringing heavy rain from Florida to New England, including to areas already saturated or still flooded from Tropical Storm Irene. President Obama heads to see continued flooding from Irene in Paterson, New Jersey tomorrow. Congressman Bill Pascrell's lived in Paterson all his life. He says many old buildings are badly damaged.
They're undermined, and you don't know whether they're safe to go back to. The engineers have to check that, and also have to check all the bridges. I mean, these bridges have taken a pounding.
The FBI and Homeland Security are warning about a possible terrorist threat from small airplanes, but it's not based on new information or any specific plot, says ABC News senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas.
There's no specific imminent plot that they've uncovered. This new bulletin went out to remind them that small planes are a possible tactic that Al-Qaeda and radicals might use if they were to try an attack. Apparently earlier this year, radicals were discussing aviation as a way to attack the United States.
An airline passenger is being questioned after a Spirit Airlines plane left McCarran International Airport in Las Vegas hours ago. And while it was heading to Los Angeles, according to McCarran spokesman Glenn Gardner,
at some point in the flight, a passenger made some kind of a threat. The plane returned to McCarran, requested to have Metro Police meet them and remove a suspect from the plane.
Nobody was hurt. Passengers were taken off the plane while it's searched. You're listening to ABC News.
Look at you with the top down. I thought your allergies would never let you drive a convertible.
Me neither. Every spring, my sinus congestion and pressure was so bad. But that was before Allegra.
Allegra D provides fast, non-drowsy relief of your toughest symptoms, like sneezing, running nose, and itchy, watery eyes. It even reduces inflammation and swelling that can cause congestion and pressure.
So now the top's down and your symptoms are gone.
After Allegra, I have it all.
Use as directed starts working at hour 1. Learn more at Allegra.com.
Right now at the Home Depot, get $5 off 1-gallon cans of Select Bear, Martha Stewart Living, and Glidden paints and stains. So this weekend can be the weekend your dining room goes dramatic, your deck looks years younger, or your living room just looks a lot better. Finding a new favorite color has never been easier. With $5 off our best brands of paints and stains. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. Mail-in rebate through September 7th, U.S. only, void where prohibited.
There are donation cans for the Red Cross at each entrance and fewer exhibits at the Vermont State Fair this year. It just opened last night. Officials say attendance was off, but just slightly, due to the continuing recovery from Irene's flooding and damage. Fair manager Richard Rivers says many roads are still closed, with detours for would-be fairgoers.
We have been fielding hundreds and hundreds of calls from people looking for the best directions to get here.
There's even a FEMA booth in one of the barns at the Vermont State Fair. Flexing muscles, punching the air, a boxing stance, joking with reporters as he left a hospital, Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, after undergoing a third round of chemotherapy at a Caracas hospital for an undisclosed cancer. Word came that a tumor was removed in his pelvic region in June at a Cuban hospital. Docs today say Chavez is in fine health. Continuing weeks of protests against the high cost of living. Thousands of Israelis in the country's 3 largest cities. This protester in Tel Aviv.
The parliament, the ministers, the prime ministers are working all for 20 families. They don't care for the public. And we're here to take back the power to the public.
The multi-billion-dollar porn industry's resumed production. An unnamed male actor who tested positive for HIV last week has now retested negative, according to an industry group. This is ABC News.
Does your roof need replacing? Your house need cleaning? Or maybe you're ready to update your kitchen? Big or small, whatever your home improvement need, log on to home.servicemagic.com. ServiceMagic is a free online resource with instant access to pre-screened remodelers, maids, handymen, painters, and many other home contractors. It's easy and it's free. Just go to home.servicemagic.com. home.servicemagic.com. That's home.servicemagic.com.
Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
Are you looking for a faithful and loyal canine companion? Well, Forever Paws Animal Shelter at 300 Linwood Street in Fall River has the perfect one up for adoption. Fiona is a beautiful brown medium-sized mixed breed who is 3 years old. This very friendly and loyal American shelter dog consists of Boston and American Staffordshire Terrier, Great Dane, and Bulldog, according to her DNA certificate. Fiona's eager to please, loves to play fetch, good on a leash, knows some basic commands, and has a huge heart. Now, since she's selective as to what animal she interacts well with, the perfect home for her would be the only pet in the house. She'd also give you tons of kisses and be your best buddy at home and in the car. What more could you ask for in a canine companion? She's been waiting patiently for her forever home. For more information, call Forever Paws at 508-677-9154 or visit their website, foreverpaws.com.
AM 1420, WBSM, with Total Body Wellness. Every Tuesday morning on The Pete Braley Show. Join Rainey St. Laurent to Pharma Health as he covers a wide variety of topics designed to make you feel better. How to handle the side effects of certain vaccines. How to reduce the risk of breast and prostate cancer. How to sleep better. The benefits of vitamin D, and many more topics. Your host is a registered pharmacist, a board-certified clinical nutritionist, as well as a doctor of natural medicines. Total Body Wellness, every Tuesday morning at 8:25 with Pete Braley on AM 1420 WBSM.
My name is Sue Smith. I'm 38 years old, and I work at a graphic design company, which is funny, because I couldn't even draw a stick figure when I was a kid. But I met someone who told me, you know what? You can do anything if you really want to. And if the teenage me were here, she'd tell you,
I wouldn't be into drawing and art if it wasn't for big brothers, big sisters. Most kids from my neighborhood don't get into art. They get into trouble. But I was lucky because my big sister showed me early on that I didn't have to be like most people. And to the young me,
that meant a lot. My big sister's name is Sheila, and Sheila is the reason that this 8-year-old grows up to have an amazing job as a graphic designer.
Whether you donate money or time, you're helping Big Brothers Big Sisters help a child, and that can last a lifetime. Start something today at BigBrothersBigSisters.org. Brought to you by Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Ad Council.
Hi, my name's Bob. I see this ad on TV. Says I can reduce my debt by 50%. I call, they told me to stop paying my bills, stop talking to my creditors. They'd take care of everything.
I gave them thousands, but most of it went to their fees.
Getting out of debt is neither quick nor easy. There are those who will tell you anything to win your trust.
I'm more in debt now because the fees and interest on my cards kept piling up.
Talk to your creditors directly, or to find a nonprofit agency near you, visit debtadvice.org. This has been a public service message.
date. A 2-liter bottle of Shasta and my all-rush mixtape. Let's rock.
I'm not afraid. You will be.
Welcome to Spooky Southcoast.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
All right, welcome back. Hour number 2 of Spooky Southcoast, our annual Bridgewater Triangle Investigation Special. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa, and joining us in the studio when he's normally out in the field for this show is Matt Moniz, our science advisor. We needed the help tonight. We've got so much going on.
Not that I'm much help tonight.
Well, we've got so much stuff happening with people out in the field investigating and checking in on Twitter. If you go to SpookySouthcoast.com, you can click on the Bridgewater Triangle Project link, and you can get the Twitter feed. And then in a separate window, go ahead and open up Spooky TV, and you can watch what's going on here in the Spooky Studio and join in the chat room as well. And that's the way to do it. I mean, you just lay out 4 or 5 tabs, open up on your computer, and you can follow everything Bridgewater Triangle for tonight. And we have Kristen Good, who is one of the Bridgewater Triangle researchers, along with Manny Familari. She is on the phone with us. And now also joining us on the line is our show's content director, Chris Balzano, who's running Command Central down there in Florida. Chris, you've been doing a great job getting those tweets up there, and I saw that there's some evidence rolling in as well. It just seems like this technology stuff is kind of working out, except for the phones.
If we can learn a little bit more about what exactly the ins and outs are of some of this technology. But it's really, it's interesting because in talking with Warren Coleman back in the day, he'd always said that the Bridgewater Triangle and his kind of layout of it, Mysterious America, was meant to be a template for other people to follow. And it's really interesting that tonight that seems to be just what's going on. Like, we're taking this template that he created that's kind of gone through those people who gave it kind of a live, and Pittman and I in the late 90s and the early 2000s, and now all these other groups are out there, and it's amazing to see that, we're getting all this different kind of research, we're expanding kind of our information, and now we're also expanding how we're looking for it and how we're communicating it back to people. So it's all very interesting to kind of sit back and be actively involved in what's going on.
See, I think I figured out the trick to using all this technology to our advantage. Next year, we have a 13-year-old kid come in, and he or she can just basically teach us how to do it, or just do it for us during the course of the show. We have a loyal fan, a loyal listener named Lara, who's very good at social media, so maybe we can get her to come in and help out next year, and she can help us get all this stuff under wraps. And we'll be a year older and a year wiser. So.
And of course, by that time, a new technology will be around that we don't understand. That would have made it even better.
I hear that the year 2000 is going to bring some lots of innovations. So I'm just waiting to figure out how to use those. We remember the old days when we used to consider ourselves like technologically advanced. What happened to us?
I don't know. It was really funny. I was actually listening to my first appearance on Spooky Southcoast the other night.
Oh, you were terrible.
Dishes. We were so serious. We were throwing out words like socioeconomic, and we were like, all talking about this very serious thing. Neither of us wanted to blink that. There is an aspect of this that is and always will be, engaging on a non-serious level, on like a joking around on a human level, on a story level. And it's just good to see that, we've kind of caught up with ourselves and the stuff that's going on out there by the way we approach it now.
Absolutely. And one thing that I've noticed, too, as the years go on, as we do this, it becomes less and less. There's less and less of a need to really explain what we're talking about. We just say Bridgewater Triangle Investigation Show, and people know what we're talking about. People know what to expect. So it seems like the research that yourself and Chris and Lauren have all done, it seems to have embedded itself in the mind of the public. So.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing is that if you go back and listen to that first show, and even some of the other shows, which are kind of all up there for you guys to listen to, there was almost no talk of psychics, of impressions, of anything like that. And tonight it seems a lot of the information coming through is coming through like John was talking about earlier, psychic impressions or clara audio, which is like clairvoyant audio, things that are going on. So it's interesting how we've kind of come back on the circle of less of the technology and more of the impression that people are getting from the triangle, which, can be argued is the most powerful kind of, background of it.
And Kristen, I'm sure that you've been in contact over the course of your research with many of the same investigators that we're talking to tonight, and it seems like the people who pay attention to the Bridgewater Triangle, it's not just that they want to capture the paranormal, but they have a respect for the history and for whatever the overlying cause is of all this activity. They seem to treat it with great reverence.
I have to agree with that, absolutely.
And of course, we always do. Even when we don't take it seriously, we are serious about it. And one of the things that we've followed along over the course of the years is some of the things that have gone on in the Freetown State Forest and in that area. And Chris, you wrote a whole book about it called Dark Woods, Cults, Crime, and the Paranormal in the Freetown State Forest. And you talked about some of these cult activities that happened. And we actually have breaking news regarding that from earlier today. Why don't you share everybody what happened?
Sure. Actually, yesterday, Fall River, the Herald News posted that Robin Murphy, who is obviously closely linked to the case, has been arrested. And it's nothing too, on the surface at least, it's nothing too sexy. She was with someone who was a convicted felon that breaks her parole. And so she has been put back in jail. Now, this happened back in July, but for some reason it's just coming out now. I'm not sure if they served her a warrant recently. Unfortunately, oddly enough, the Herald News is the only people that are covering this right now.
Mm-hmm.
But she's back in jail, and the article itself is actually probably more telling than the fact that she is. I mean, it's she was on she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. She was in jail for life with the possibility of parole. The parole she got in 2004. This revokes that. So technically, in theory, in late September, when she goes to trial, they're deciding whether or not to put her back in jail for the rest of her life. But, of course, she will then be eligible for parole again at some time down the future. But what's really interesting about the article itself is that the slant has totally changed. When I first started reading this, Robin Murphy was an informant. She was involved in the case. If you read a lot of the books and the articles that were written back in the day, it was, she was a very dynamic figure, but she was secondary to Carl Drew. And the tone of this recent article, and we'll be posting this up at Spooky Southcoast so people can get it, and it will definitely be on our Twitter feed, is that she was a mastermind of everything, which has always been implied. But this article reads as if, like, the killer who did this is back in jail. And it's kind of, and then Carl Drew is mentioned a little bit, but it's really kind of this focus on Robin Murphy as being the mastermind of everything, which has been in the
that's
minds
an interesting
of
little twist for the media, how they played this.
Right. It's definitely been in the minds of people for at least, the past decade, and Carl Drew has been very vocal in getting out there, and a lot of the police that were involved in the case have kind of turned it around. But this is really the first time that it's the public face of the case itself that's being presented, like you're saying. The odd, slant of the media is portraying Robin Murphy as being the murderer, and everyone else as being secondary.
Yeah, Alan Alves, I think, has always believed that she was the mastermind. Alan Alves was the cult cop who solved these cult crimes in Freetown Forest.
Right,
and he described her as pure evil.
And most of the people involved have kind of felt that same way, other than the police and the district attorney, who were very quick, because it makes it a lot easier of a package to say there was a pimp, murders happened, he clothed everything in Satanism. We actually have a witness here who says it, and therefore let's wrap up the case. But like you were saying, Alan Alves and almost everyone else that I've talked to involved in the case really think that she was the primary person.
Well, and in the story from the Herald News, which I just did put up on the Twitter feed if people want to check it out, but in this story, they speak with retired former Detective Sergeant Paul Carey, who was actually involved in the case, and he thinks that hopefully this means that they could possibly bring her back on trial for the murder of Doreen Levesque, because from what I'm reading from the story, and Chris, you would probably know better than I, she turned state's evidence in for one of the murders, but recanted her testimony for the other one, so she could theoretically still be charged for that?
Yeah, she can. I mean, I believe one was placed on, I can't remember his name right now, but he was the girlfriend of one of them. He was convicted. He died in jail. But the other one's kind of open, and so they're looking to see if they can pin this on her. I mean, I think that's wishful thinking. It sounds very romantic to say it in the article itself, and I would love to see some kind of justice for that murder, which has really been unsolved.
And that was Andre Maltese you were talking about, right?
Yes, okay. Maltese. Everyone wants closure to it, and everyone feels like there is kind of some closure to it until you look at it and say, like, actually, no, Doreen Levesque never got justice. So I think that it would be amazing if they did do that, but, I mean, this has been a sore spot for the district attorneys in that area for, decades. And I think they really just kind of want to wash over it. And I'm probably... I believe it's Sam Sutter now. I think he wants the whole thing to go away now. Actually, he's probably kind of aggravated that she's been caught back in the news.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really is something that has killed the careers of the district attorneys from Pena all the way through. And even though, when Sutter came into office, he talked about, closing this case and closing the highway murders, and he really hasn't done anything actively except for, like, his first few months in office to do that. And I think right now it's a sore spot. So I don't think you're going to see people digging up Levesque's body anytime soon.
And, Chris, I think it's worth mentioning what Robin's job was that she got in the last year. Didn't
Let's just put it this way. I'm glad I'm down here in Florida. So.
Oh, yeah, because Florida's way more saner.
Oh, yeah. They're wicked smart down here. Yeah, she was with the state auditor's office. So, she was, and I remember that someone had told us, at least a year ago now, that they had seen her in that office. And they were like, I think I saw Robin Murphy. And then we had kind of broken that she was working and that we were paying her salary.
A huge salary.
Well,
a pretty good salary for a murderer.
We'll see what happens with this story. We'll keep an eye on it, of course, as we always do. Chris does a great job of keeping an eye on all these things for us. But, I hate to say it, man, we might reach a point where we're going to have to go on these airwaves and say, you know what? Carl Drew was right. And he'll love that. He will love that.
Well, I think that we've been saying that on these airwaves, at least since 2005 when I was coming on and we had Alan on, he said it. And I think that it's really, it's crazy to think because he fit the part so well. But he was the ultimate fall guy. I mean, he was a really good scapegoat, really good sacrificial lamb. I'm going to see how many things that can relate to Satanism I'm going to throw out here that for analogies. But, I mean, I don't think he'll ever get out of jail. I don't think there'll ever be enough evidence, only because they can never go back to Marston's murder and say that, there's new evidence of that frees him of that, because that's what he was convicted of.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be a very long time that Carl Drew is going to be in jail, and I don't think that he's ever going to get out.
It would be great to see Robin Murphy get hers, though.
I mean, it's kind of this. It's part of the triangle lore now. This whole thing of this killer who might have duped everybody, and you see all of the primary people, on talk shows and on specials on crime programs on television, and they all are still painting Carl Drew, and yet everyone who didn't have a financial stake in it all say that this thing played out the wrong way.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you know that she was romantically involved with Karen Marston? They were lovers.
Well, I mean, I know that she, and there was actually a triangle with her, with those two, and then another woman whose name I can't remember, who was the owner of the apartment that a lot of the ceremonies, the satanic ceremonies they had were played out. And so there was this, and I think any romantic connection was probably complete manipulation. And you have to remember that Marston was a snitch in the making. She was the one that was going to blow it all up.
But so Marston really honestly trusted Murphy, really and truly, and she was madly in love with her. And as Robin was killing her, she was performing oral sex on her, kissing her before she sliced her neck and then cut her head off. She's completely evil and psychotic. And, you know, Carl Drew's guilty, but I don't believe he was the ringleader.
Well, and it does kind of prove everybody's point that auditors are evil. Well, we do need to move on a little bit. We will definitely keep up with this story as more news comes about. And, Chris, I know you were trying to get in contact with Kevin P. O'Connor, who wrote the story for the Fall River Herald News, and we'll see if he can keep us up to date. And I'm sure Lauren Coleman will be keeping an eye on it as well. So, and like I said, I tweeted the news story, and if anything else follows up in the next few days, we'll have that up there as well. But let's check back in with some of these teams. We have somebody that's been on hold for a little while. Let's see if they're still there or if a bear got them. That bear's still loose, isn't it? Yeah. Well, should have thought of that before we did that. And then, of course, you know, the night before we do this, the first Triple E case is confirmed in Massachusetts. So, all right, good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. How you doing?
Hey, Tim. What's going on? It's John Brightman.
Hey, John. And I hear that, did you get my message? Did you get a hold of Joe? Because he's been trying to get a hold of you.
No, I didn't get your message. It's the first time I've gotten service since we've been out here.
Okay, well, I'd said on the air, you know, John Brightman, Joe's paging you. But he says for you to definitely get in touch with him. He's over there at the Rock, so.
Okay. Yeah, this is the first time we've gotten service. We've been up at the underground cave, and we've been to the shack. And now we're just leaving the pet cemetery right now up here in the forest. So not too much going on at the underground cave. We got a couple of weird hits with the thermal that I sent over to Chris. And then we got up at the shack, we were actually getting footsteps. We just purchased some real-time EVP recorders, and we had both of them running, and we could hear footsteps moving around us, but not too sure where they were coming from, just somewhere around us. And then we got a few spikes on the K2, but nothing, you know, outstanding.
Well,
but it's been pretty quiet.
Did you hear the news that we were discussing with Chris and Kristen before you called in about Robin Murphy?
Actually, I did, and I actually found out about it today, and I actually sent a message to Chris earlier today telling him about it, too, because I didn't know if he had heard.
And we got a call earlier in the night. A caller had called in asking about Mary Lou Arruda, and your family had a personal connection to that case, right?
Yes, correct. My grandfather happened to be driving down Copacabana Road when two kids ran out of the woods saying that they found a body tied to the tree. So then that's when, you know, he didn't believe them. He parked his truck, walked in with them. They showed him. He got back in his truck and went to the nearest house to call the cops.
So it definitely, you know, it's strange the connections that we've made to these cases, but it seems to have permeated kind of to the next generation, and it's brought all of us involved into it.
Absolutely, you know, it has, and you know, with him. With us being able to get into the forest like we do and be able to check a lot of these locations out, it makes it great for us to be able to investigate it and share it with you guys for the show and people who might not be able to get out here that really don't know where the shack is or the pet cemetery.
Well, and you're going to stick out in that area for the rest of the night?
Yeah, we're actually we're going to leave the cemetery right now. We're going to check on one of the other groups down by the ledge just to see how they're making out. And because they were talking about hiking and not driving, and so we were a little concerned with them. But we're going to check on them, and then we're going to head actually over to Profile Rock and go up on top of the rock and see what we can get going on over there.
All right. Well, thank you very much, John Brightman, New England Paranormal Research. And if we don't get a chance to check back in with you, you can always send the tweets over to Chris, or you can tweet them, or whatever you got to do. But we know that you're technologically advanced, unlike us. So.
All right, bud.
Thanks,
you very
John.
much.
Bye, John.
We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Take care. That is John Brightman, NEPR, and he'll be speaking at the February 25th event for sure, and he'll be selling some of his equipment too. So some of the stuff that he was talking about, if you want to get your hands on it, you want to come and see him at that event at the Seaport Inn on February 25th. And we do have some other groups that we need to check in with. Matt, I'm going to put you on the case here. We want to check in with Whaling City Ghosts and Bay State Paranormal for sure. And I don't know, we can try and get a hold of the group with Andy too. I don't know if they're going to have reception where they are.
Bay State Paranormal seems to be getting just a ton of evidence, you know, in part because they've got Markowitz out there with them. But if you're checking the Twitter feed, they're the ones that I'm getting the most information from. and they just seem to be getting a ton, especially of EVP evidence.
Yeah, while Matt's trying to get them on the phone, let's talk about some of the things that have been coming in on the Twitter feed, because I noticed Bay State Paranormal's been putting up some photos, and you've been talking about some of what they found up there. So why don't you kind of just give people a brief rundown, and then we'll have them on to kind of discuss it a little bit more.
Sure. They are at Burial Hill in Plymouth. They're getting, like I said, they got, as soon as they entered the fort, which is there, they heard crying. Then they actually got, this was once again from a Claire audio, as they call it. I don't know if that's an actual paranormal term other people use, but it said, "Tell Granny I'm okay." And then it seems like, they've gotten, they've heard footsteps, they've gotten a yes in response to a question. Psychically, they're getting some kind of impression of maybe sisters out of there, or a woman who's looking for her sister. That might actually be another ghost that they've made contact with. They've heard 14-year-old boys. They heard who was shot in the 1800s. The name Gab, or Gabby. And then they recently, Mike Markowitz just texted a little bit ago and said that that he is getting a ton of, he's got those EVP and then the EVP ears, as he calls them, and that he's getting evidence from that, and he's getting a lot of voices in his, that he can tell he's picking something up, but he hasn't had a chance to analyze them yet. But he's also hearing them with his special Markowitz ears.
All right, well, let's go to the phones here. We have a call. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. How you doing?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, sorry, I'm getting not so good reception here.
Okay, who are we talking to?
This is Rachel from Bay State.
Hey, Rachel. Good. We were hoping we could get in touch with you. Chris was just talking about some of the stuff that's been coming through on the Twitter feed from you guys, and it sounds like you're having quite the active night out there at Burial Hill.
Yeah, but I tell you, it's really hard to tweet and look at the same time. I was trying to do it without our flashlights, and I've got the bright light from my phone at the same time. But yeah, so we have our two psychics out here with us, and they were giving us, their impression. I went over a little bit of the history of where we were and the different places, like what people have reported. Then we had a group of people down at the square, and then a couple of people up here on the Burial Hill, and now we've all sort of come together, and we're going to the different spots that the psychics are getting impressions off of.
And aside from the Triangle investigation tonight, we did have questions coming up in the chat room wondering how the Exeter UFO Festival was.
Oh, it was really good. We weren't there for very long because we had to make it back. We had to make it back to this in Plymouth. But we saw September Skies or September something, and it was a film that these two people did regarding the UFO abduction with Betty and Barney Hill, and another not an abduction, but another sighting, multiple sightings there in Exeter. It was pretty cool.
Well, and I'm sorry that we had made you rush back with the change in the schedule and everything, but I'm glad that you could get out there to a site that I've been wanting to go to and haven't had a chance to. I grew up in Plymouth. I lived there for some years when I was younger, and it always had a nice, strange vibe for me. But tying it into tonight's theme with the idea of Anawan's capture and eventual killing, I mean, it was no secret that Plymouth was the place where, when they wanted to make an example out of some of these Native Americans, that's where they brought them, humiliated them, and eventually would, execute them. I know that you've been picking up other stuff, but I mean, has there been any kind of mention of Native American presence from any of the psychics there?
No Native Americans, but lots of pilgrim presence. And Paula, actually, when we were over at the site of the fort, she got an impression of people praying within the fort, sort of praying like hoping that, they'll be protected from, the war that had ensued. So she did get that, but no real Native American presence, no.
Well, now, what's the plan? Are you going to stick in that general area? Are you going to check out some of the other sites?
Well, we one of the reports up here in Burial Hill was report of shadow people. And because there's so many lights and cars passing by, you get a lot of shadows anyway. But I actually did see one on the other side of the when we were on the other side of the cemetery, and it was by the tree. So, it was somebody that, it looked like somebody had poked their head out, looked, and then, went back on the other side of the tree. But when we went over there was nothing that would have made that shadow. So now we're kind of going around the cemetery, just kind of seeing where, the different people are drawn to, not just so much the psychics, but pretty much, all of us. Like if somebody, if two people say, I'm drawn to this area, then we all go that way, turn our flashlights off, and just kind of sit there and watch and observe.
Now, if you are standing on Burial Hill and you're facing kind of, I don't know, like north, and you see across Samoset, you can probably see from where you are the Faith Monument, the Forefathers Monument, and that's where I had some experiences when I was younger. I had a sighting there, so that might be a good spot to kind of keep an eye on. And also where the Wax Museum is, Coles Hill, that's where there's a number of early settlers were buried there from that first winter.
Yes, there's actually a house there that supposedly it was touted as the most haunted house in Plymouth. It actually went to court. It was in Jeff Belander's book there.
I wrote that article.
Oh, all right. So yeah,
if it was in Jeff's book, Chris probably wrote it.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, so that was another spot. We'd actually gone over there a couple of days ago. So we probably hit that way too. Just kind of walk around downtown Plymouth, because when we first got here, Linda Marie had gotten an impression of sort of pilgrims walking up Leiden Street, or people in period clothing walking up Leiden Street. So we'll, when we leave here, we'll probably walk up Leiden Street and around Coles Hill.
That wasn't an impression. That was Colonial Lantern Tours. They're friends of ours. Tell them we said hi.
Yeah, but not everybody dresses up in imperial clothing there.
I just wanted to work in a nice plug for Tom and the group over there. So.
Okay.
Snuck in a little plug for them. We'll definitely keep us up to date and keep updating Chris, and he'll get it up there on the feed. But it sounds like you guys are going to have some great evidence to turn in. And I know Mike, everywhere he goes, he's the man when it comes to EVPs.
That's right. He's the master.
And you've got quite the group out there tonight. You've got like an all-star team out there. So I'm sure that there'll be a lot of evidence coming up from this.
Yeah, we do. We actually have people from 4 different groups here, believe it or not. So it's pretty cool.
And for those listening in other areas, other parts of the country, and other parts of the world, see, paranormal groups can all get along.
That's right. We're all going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya later.
That definitely comes later. I learned the chords, so we're all set. All right, have a great night. Stay safe, and we'll keep checking in on Twitter.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, that is Bay State Paranormal. They are out there in Plymouth at Burial Hill. And we do have a few groups that we do want to try and check in with. We're trying to get a hold of. We would like to talk to Whaling City Ghosts, who have been out there at Anawan Rock. And since we are focusing on the anniversary of Anawan's capture and execution, we'd like to talk with Luann out there if we can get a hold of them. Also, Andy is out there with our friend Andrew Lake is out there with Kathy Caslen, the Paranormal Granny, and Worcester Paranormal. They're all out there along Route 44. And we have just so many great guests. I mean, Joe DeAndre, we were going to check in with him, but I think we're kind of running low on time. Maybe we can get him back for another show. And Kristen, I know that you and Manny have been working with Joe and getting a lot of his information. Maybe some night we can have you guys come in with him if we can find a night that works for everybody.
Yeah, that sounds great, and I'm dying to hear what happened to it Forefathers Monument. You'll have to tell me that someday.
Oh, I shared this last year on our Plymouth show, but my dad used to do an early morning paper route, and I went with him one morning, and I was walking around. He used to let me go up there and check out the sunrise from there, and he would take a little 10-minute nap in the car after he was done. And so I was up there, like, hanging out, watching the sunrise, and when I saw something out of the corner of my eye and I turned around, I thought it was my dad messing with me. When I went back to the car, he was still asleep, and we looked around, there was nobody there. So
yeah, that definitely has a really, really strong presence. And
there's such a vibe there, and I found out so much stuff about that in later years.
Yeah, me too. I'm convinced there's something buried inside of it, and that it's not solid.
I would not be surprised.
It's supposed to be the tallest monument in the United States, solid granite, but I felt drafts coming through the cracks. The thing's not solid.
The Washington Monument isn't granite?
Huh?
The Washington Monument's not granite?
I don't know.
I don't know. Well,
but this is the tallest solid granite monument in the United States.
Oh, that's true. The Washington Monument's hollow, so yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Next time I'm there, I'll just crack it open and I'll take a peek inside. See
All
what
right,
it's
please do.
No, I will not do that. But we definitely can do another whole show, and we probably will, on Plymouth and just some of the haunted sites around there. Maybe we'll do one of these shows, like our Triangle show. Maybe we'll do one around some of these sites of Plymouth.
Yeah,
because
there's a lot of energy.
And Chris, while we have you and while we're trying to get a hold of some of these groups, I do want to mention that we were talking earlier this week. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too much, but we might have an interesting new show coming to Spooky TV, hosted by a good friend of yours from right here in the Southcoast region. It might be pretty exciting to have a show that's going to emanate live every week from an actual haunted house.
No way.
Yeah, that was crazy when I heard Kate and Johnny, who have been on the show. It's known as the Samuel West House, but we all call it Kate and Johnny's house. She's kind of volunteered to talk about what's been going on in her house and what's been going on a week-to-week basis, and hopefully the show involves, some of the evidence that people have gotten there over the years. But it's, she could just host a show herself. She's just such an amazing personality, so I'm anxious to see what that show develops into.
And I like the idea of being able to check in week to week and finding out what's been going on in this haunted house and find out what kind of activity's been happening. And maybe, by doing the show, it'll either increase or, it'll kind of give her more to talk about on the show. Not that she doesn't have plenty to talk about already.
Yeah, it is just really interesting, I hate to use this term, but really interesting crossroads of stuff that went on there, because there seems to be history there. It used to be a funeral parlor. It's right on the edge of a kind of almost like a hospice community. She calls it, death's waiting room. So there might be stuff going in there, but every time we've gone in there, and every people that I talked to that have gone in there, they always seem to get some amazing kind of evidence. And it's still my favorite EVP of all time was when it went Matthew, when Moniz and I went in there. It's still the eerie one, which, as I've said before, for anyone that listens to the old shows, was caught not by like me in a darkened room, like going over EVPs, but a room full of noisy teenagers. As I was evaluating evidence in my when I was teaching paranormal investigation to high school students a few years ago, it was that loud and that obvious, and we caught so much really interesting, solid material. And some of it is kind of like up there for evaluation, because it's they had that guy who was living on the second floor who might have faked some of it because he wanted to get on paranormal shows. But even through all that, even with him gone, and even in things that he wasn't involved in, there's still a lot going on in that house. And so there's a great history to it, and also a great present to it.
Hey, Chris, what about the other EVP that's on Picture Yourself Ghost Hunting?
Yeah, and that was, and that's just kind of like, the insane part of it. Yeah, Andy Lake, when he was editing the DVD that comes with Picture Yourself Ghost Hunting, caught a guy yelling about an airplane. And Moniz and some of his friends found out later that there was an airplane crash that happened right near that resulted in fatalities. And it's that kind of weird stuff that comes out of that house. That's just, and let's not forget, that was also the house that Markowitz caught the ghosts talking to each other about the investigators, telling them to stop talking, that they were being recorded, that we were looking for EVPs, and kind of older people yelling at the younger people to stop making noise so they wouldn't be able to capture voices on audio tape. And so it really is this crazy, crazy house. So I'm interested to see where we can get done with that.
All right. Well, we do have a call on the line here, probably from one of our investigating groups. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. Who are we talking to?
Hey, Tim. It's Luann from Wayland City Ghost.
We've the chat room has been anxiously awaiting your appearance. They're dying to find out what's been going on out there.
Oh, we've been having a great night tonight. We actually hit Assawampset Pond in Lakeville, where Sassamon was found dead, and they suspect that he was murdered by the Wampanoags for betraying him. And now we have been over here at Anawan Rock for about an hour, and we're with Andrew Lake and the Paranormal Granny. And I do know that Crystal did have some battery failure tonight, and one of the other girls with Andrew has caught a very strange light anomaly that she actually did see with her eyes and was lucky enough to catch with the camera, too. So we're just kind of staking out the top of the rock and hoping that they make contact.
And you've had success there in the past. We were talking with Kristen Good, who's on the line with us as well, and she was sharing a story that somebody had an experience there as well, with complete with some Wampanoag language being spoken. And Kristen, why don't you just recount the story quickly for Luann, and she can see if it's similar to what's happened to her.
Sure. I was there about 2 years ago, right around this time of year, and there was a man and his 2 kids running out of the woods. They had just seen 100 eyes floating above the rock, and the year before they got an EVP around the same time of year, and it said Neotomp, but they didn't know what that meant. But I told them what it meant, and that kind of eased them a little bit because they were really freaked out.
And that's kind of similar to what's happened to you out there before, right? Have you captured that word out there before?
Actually, what I caught up here was Keetampog, which is similar. It's close. Actually, Keetampog is friend or kinsman, and actually plural. Neetomp means brother. And
brother?
Neetomog would be brother or brother.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, would you assume
interesting that you saw a man with children running out of the woods, and that would actually be something that would be very common, I would say, up here, because these were families. These were children and, the last of them. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Would you say that that's maybe the spirits reaching out and kind of trying to extend, brotherly love to us, or do you think that it's, communication amongst themselves maybe?
That's hard to say because they do seem to be friendly spirits. You don't feel threatened out here. But whether it's maybe communication between one spirit to another or if they're reaching out to us in brotherhood, that would be hard to say. But I do feel like they're very forgiving and friendly up here.
Well, glad they don't blame us.
That sounds a lot like the Tai Paiwunkas. So it's interesting that people are getting a positive feeling, not a lost or negative feeling.
It's a really peaceful place. You have to experience it. It's just I've never felt anything negative there myself.
No, me either. I also kind of think it's the person too. If you're someone who has a lot of respect for the people or just people in general, then I think you're going to have a positive response up here. If you're negative or have a bad view of like the Indians, and I think you could possibly get a negative reaction from them.
Yeah, I think
because
I
some people have actually come out and felt threatened.
I've always gone there in the daytime, and so I've never gotten a negative feeling from it. And actually, most times I get pretty much a neutral feeling from it. But I don't know if that's if the mood changes at night or I'm just not receptive, which I generally am not to feelings like that sometimes. So it's definitely someplace that, especially you, Luann, always get something when you're there.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Are you part Native American?
Slightly, just a little bit of Iroquois, but the Algonquins were sort of all related anyways. They all did know each other, so we've actually wondered if maybe that helped a little bit. Because the first time we came out here, I was actually with Gabby, and she also has a little bit of Indian in her too. So is it possible that they can feel that? I don't know. And maybe it does make a difference. Maybe if one of the descendants of the people who actually helped to bring the tribe down came out here, maybe they would get a different response than we do.
All right. Well, hopefully now, when you were at Assawamsett Pond, you didn't run into any puckwudgies, did you? Because that's supposedly where they took down the Great Spirit. What was his name, Chris?
Moshop.
Yeah, Moshop. That's
actually I think the more I was researching that, I think that's a different, very similar Native American story, but actually a different instance than that. I think that was much more towards the Cape area that Moshop was killed. The more that I looked into it after the initial kind of research, so
the Mashpee, would that be the Mashpee site?
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting though is it can take down the Great Moshop, but those puckwudgies wouldn't stand a chance against Whaling City ghosts.
Well, no, actually, I hope that they're friendly because I do feed my puckwudgies well.
There you go. All right. Well, stay safe out there, and tell Andy and Kathy and everybody from Worcester Paranormal that we said hello, and they can
We
keep
certainly
sending anything
will.
to Chris. Anything you get, just get in touch with Chris.
And a shout out to all the friends in the chat room. Hope they're having a great time tonight.
All right. Yeah, they do miss you. So that is Whaling City Ghosts, Luann Jolie, and we'll talk to you in the future to find out if you got anything.
You sure will.
All right. Stay safe.
Good
We
night.
will.
Goodbye.
Thanks. Good night.
And we do have another call here on the line, and I'm not sure if that's a group or not, but we'll check in. Good. Just click. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. Who are we talking to? Hello? Hi. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's been very nice, very peaceful out here. So far, my big fear of the evening is whether or not I'm going to have to call the fire department to haul me down off this rock because it's pretty high.
Who are we talking to?
Kathy Caslin
Oh, hi,
from Worcester
Kathy.
Paranormal.
Yeah,
How are ya?
Paranormal Granny. How you been?
Paranormal Granny, that's right.
And
Who may need the fire department to get off the rock. We went up earlier. I got here earlier this evening before dark. And I just wanted to let people know that there is actually a Wampanoag powwow going on here in Rehoboth. And it's right off of Bay State Road. And they are open to the public from 11 till 5 tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
And
Oh,
I went in
awesome.
and spoke to them for a little while, and just to make sure, because we were over in the cemetery number 8, for quite a while, and I didn't want them to think that we were taking pictures of them or recording them, kind of thing. And so they were very nice, very pleasant, and I wanted to pass that on. So if there are any listeners who are interested, they have that going on, open to the public tomorrow. We had some interesting experiences in that graveyard. We did think that we saw a shadow. And cemetery number 8 is supposed to have the spirit of a man they call Ephraim.
Oh, so you're talking about Village Cemetery, right?
The Village Cemetery, yes, the Village Cemetery. And we thought that maybe we saw a shadow. We walked to the back, we didn't see it. What else did we have? Some smell of lilacs. We smelled lilacs by one grave, and we looked around. There were no flowers.
Well, I
other
don't
than
think
plastic ones.
we're past lilac season anyway, aren't we?
Yeah, we're well past lilac
Because my bush
season.
died already.
Yeah, well.
Did you feel any cold spots in the cemetery at all?
No. Well, interestingly enough, there was one of the girls that I'm with, Brenda Cirillo. She had mentioned that she thought she kept seeing a little girl named Olivia. She's, pretty heavily psychic, and we did find a grave for a little girl named Olivia.
Yeah, there
in
is
the
a
graveyard.
legend about a little girl.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. There is a legend in the cemetery of a little girl running around. I don't know the name of, if she had a
look,
name
there is.
attached
There's a
to her.
legend of that cemetery of a little girl running around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there you go. Not cold spots, but over by that little girl's grave, it felt very hot. If that
Hot?
makes any sense. Yeah, hot, like fever, or it just felt really, really warm. And then when you stepped away from it, the temperature around it was a lot cooler.
Interesting.
And you're out there with Andrew Lake and Worcester Paranormal?
I am. Yep. I'm here with John and Brent. John and Brenda come out with Worcester Paranormal with us, and Andrew's a few feet away from me. I hope he doesn't fall off that ledge. There he goes.
Andrew,
Did you hear
leave
the
us
scream?
EVPs.
Did you hear the scream? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I got to make sure to put that on my recorder so we know.
Well,
I think it's an EVP.
everybody stay safe out there, and anything that you get, anything that goes on, just get a hold of Chris, and he'll put it up on the Twitter feed, and any evidence or anything, we'll have it up there. So.
Yeah, we will. When I review, I'll be sure to email anything that I get to you folks. So,
All right, and how's your show coming along?
my show?
Yeah.
Oh, the one I was doing in Quincy.
Yeah.
Actually, I can't do it anymore because I no longer live in Quincy.
Ah, there you go. Yeah, that's the hang up about those channels.
I bought a little house in Weymouth.
Ah, well.
So that's sort of the end of that.
Well, Spooky TV is available if you want to move it to there.
Oh, well, I'll definitely keep that in mind.
All right, we'll talk.
Randy, what time was the powwow tomorrow? 'Cause I'm posting that up on the feed.
It's from 11 a.m. till 5 p.m. when it's open to the public.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
All right.
Oh, yeah, that's great. I think it would be wonderful to support it.
And thank you so much for checking in and for sharing that with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
All righty, you guys have a good night.
You
Bye.
too. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Kristen, I always get my Rehoboth cemeteries confused between Palmer River and Village. Some of the things that have been reported. Is Palmer River or Village the one that has the cat calls?
I don't know about cat calls. I've never heard that one before. Palmer is it's a smaller cemetery. It's really not that much. It's not that far from Village, though. Village is like a main cemetery in town.
I can't remember. One of them has the people hear cat calls from one of the corners of it, and it's been pretty.
Oh, that's Village Cemetery.
Village?
That's
Okay.
the same spirit that she was just talking about, Ephraim.
Okay.
He doesn't like women too much.
You're right.
And I wanted to ask you, Kristen, what's the status of you and Manny's work? I know that you've been working on some multimedia stuff. What's coming down the pike from you guys?
Well, we all had a crazy summer. You know, we're working with Aaron Caggio, and we're about to have a production meeting and get to business. And we've kind of all been doing stuff separately, but we need to, come together and make up a schedule. But it's still going. We're still working hard.
And I know, Manny, and you spend many hours in front of microfilm readers and researching some of the stranger stories that we still haven't heard about the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yep. Like I said, it's been a crazy summer, but, it's fall. My kids are back in school, so I can hit the library again. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, we have about 4 minutes left in the show, but while we have Chris Balzano and Kristen Good with us, if anybody has a quick question, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. Those are the numbers if you want to sneak in a question before we go. Now, Chris, we're going to keep updating that site as people have evidence, as they do their reviews, and they forward it to you. We're going to put it up on that Bridgewater Triangle site on our site, right?
Yeah, I think we're really going to stay on them because everyone talks about the show all year long, and then the people make reference to information that they got. So we really want to get that information out, but we also want to, we want to have kind of a place for people to kind of get their feet wet with Bridgewater Triangle stuff, and there's no better place than what's probably the official radio show of the Bridgewater Triangle. So we're trying to get as much of that information up as possible over the next couple of weeks. I'm
guessing somewhere there's a ghost, an alien, Bigfoot, and a Thunderbird all huddled around a radio laughing. Like, those guys, they don't realize we take this night off every year.
If only we still had Justin around to draw that up, that would be pretty awesome.
Well, definitely stay tuned to that site, and if you just go to SpookySouthcoast.com and click on the Bridgewater Triangle Project link, you'll see not only the Twitter feed, not only the evidence as it comes in, but you can listen to all those past shows, and you can kind of listen to when we first started out talking about this topic. We had Chris Pittman on, we had Chris Balzano on, and over the years we brought in a whole host of characters, and it seems like now, as we go along, it's become so much easier to find people that want to get out there and investigate the Triangle, that know about the Triangle. Before, we used to have to kind of tell investigators about it before we sent them out there. But now, they're coming fully armed, and the research that you guys do and the research that Manny and Kristen do and Chris Pittman, I mean, it seems like we've made it so that it's the most interactive paranormal night you can have on Spooky South Coast. The rest of the time, it's just us talking at you, and we force you to listen. This is the listener show. So what do you think next year, when we do this again, should we go back to the middle of February like we used to do? No? Nobody's game for that?
Oh, you can do it in February. No problem with me whatsoever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to you down there.
You knock yourself out.
No, I think this is it's such a hard thing to find the right night to do it. But I think tonight, in honor of the anniversary of Anawan, we did the right thing, and I think that when the evidence starts rolling in, we might see the payoff from that. And the important thing is all these groups that are out there tonight, everybody's professional, everybody's respectful, everybody knows how to behave, they know how to conduct an investigation, which is important, but they also know how to treat the site with reverence, which is just as important. So our thanks to all the investigators. I'll just Give a quick roll call before we go off the air here. Our thanks, of course, to Kristen and Manny for all their work. Kristen joining us tonight on the phone. Chris Balzano, our content director, who not only does all this research on the Bridgewater Triangle, but also pretty much helps us run the entire program and running Command Central down there tonight in Florida. Thanks to Pilgrim Paranormal Research, Bay State Paranormal, Mike and Paula Markowitz, Ann Kerrigan, Jason Lorifus, Whaling City Ghosts, Greenville Paranormal Research, and Andrew Lake, the Paranormal Granny, Kathy Caslin, Worcester Paranormal, Mark Colacusis, Nathan Meyer of Near, and everybody else that's been out there, Joe Andrade, everybody that's been out there tonight working hard and running the investigation for us. We thank you. Send us all of your evidence. Send it to Chris. He'll get it up there on the site, and it'll be a nice permanent reference point for people to go to check out more about the Bridgewater Triangle. Next week, Chris, what's the plan? Do we know what's going on next week?
We don't. I've got a few things coming down the pike. I was hoping to have Andy in to talk about his book, but I've got some other things that may be lining up. So the only date we have for sure set in stone this month is the 24th, and I believe the 13th or the 17th.
The 17th, Christopher Coratino of the Lutz family will be joining us to tell us the real story of Amityville. I cannot wait for this show. So until next week, we'll be back to talk about something paranormal. For Matt Costa, for Matt Moniz, for Chris Balzano, I'm Tim Weisberg. We want you all to stay spooktacular.
First with local news, talk, and sports. This is WBSM New Bedford, Citadel Broadcasting.